So welcome everyone who's on YouTube. We want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. We're going to begin in just a moment, and we'll be letting everybody in about a minute. But we want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom if you're joining us on YouTube.
Shabbat Shalom and welcome.
So I think we can go ahead and we're going to let everybody into our meeting. And Emma, you can start to see that the wall is filling up with all family and friends. And so we'll give you a second before we, in our end, put you on speaker view to see the specific people leading, to see all of the people that you love and that you care about who are assembled here online for you.
And Shabbat Shalom to everyone who's just coming in. Welcome.
So Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
We're going to begin on page 74, and you're going to see that right below there is, in the chat, if you go and you click on it, there is a link for you, and the link should lead you directly to our prayer book. And so we'll invite you to pull up the prayer book either on a different screen or maybe in a screen next to you, go back and forth between the two. As together we prepare to pray. We are on page 74.
So a good morning to you all. That was Rabbi Mark Katz, who'll do, I'm sure, a fuller introduction in a few moments. And I'm Cantor Meredith Greenberg. We know that there are many guests here this morning celebrating. I can tell because you're smiling. And the truth is that there is a lot to be joyful for this morning. And it is up to us to bring the joy. We are far from one another. And yet we can be as close as our hearts will let us. So we begin with the words, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, how good is your tent, your dwelling place, Jacob, Yisrael, people struggling to understand what all of this mystery of spiritual life is about. All of us here seeking and searching to bring joyfulness and wholeness into the world. We're all under that tent this morning. Every one of us. So we begin with those words and hope that our hearts open to them a little and a little more. Oh, I see the West Coasters. You all must be tired. Well, welcome. We hope we'll help wake you up.
So once again, Shabbat Shalom to all who are here in person and to all who are joining us via live stream. You'll see that I'm wearing on my shoulders a talit, a ritual garment that symbolizes all the values and all the obligations of what it means to be a Jewish adult. And this Shabbat, as we call Emma up to the as bat mitzvah for the very first time, she is going to place one of these on her shoulders as well. And so I want to call her up to be joined by her grandfather, Martin, as he hands her tallis for the very first time, a tallis which has a special significance in her family, which he will talk about shortly. Just make sure to speak into the mic.
Good morning, everyone. I was given this tallis in December of 1947 when I was bar mitzvahed. And today, I have the privilege, 73 years later, to give the same tallis to my favorite and only granddaughter, Emma. And Shabbat Shalom. And as we say, live long and prosper.
Do you want to say the blessing?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tivanu l'hitatecha b'tzitzit.
Amen. So we're going to move forward in our prayer books, and you should find the link in your chat. We're on page 77 as we join in this special reading for the wonders of our body. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware that we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah.
So we seem to have lost. There we go, Rabbi.
Yes, we are on page 78.
All right, so for those of us who didn't hear that, bracha bochet Adonai rofech kol basar umafli la'asot. We continue now, moving from the physical space, the vessel, to the inner life, the soul. We say Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi, the soul that has been breathed into me is exactly as it's supposed to be. So just take a moment and see if you can try that on. What if your view of yourself, of life, was that you were made exactly right, with wholeness and with peace? Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shenatata bi tehorahi, Ata virata, Ata yitzarta, Ata nifachta bi, Me'ata mishamra b'kirbi. Elohai, Elohai, neshama, shenatata bi tehorahi. Baruch atah Adonai asher biyado nefesh kol chai veruach kol bisar ish.
Traditionally, on page 80, we pray a series of prayers that thank God for the small miracles of our lives. The ability to distinguish day from night, the ability to see, open our eyes, the ability to be free, to lift ourselves up. Well, there are small miracles in our lives that we often take for granted. And instead of reading these traditional prayers, what we're going to do is we're going to make our own. So we're going to start in this room, and I hope that you'll put into the chat little small miracles of things that we often take for granted, and we will pray those miracles too. So let's start in the room right now. For the 6 or 7 of us who are in this room, what's a small thing in life that you often take for granted? Your health. So we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for health. Somebody else. Joy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for joy. For friends and family. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. For friends and family. For grandchildren, for the generations, which we're going to celebrate later in our service as well. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. For grandchildren. Make sure to put into the chat lists of things that you're thinking of as we call our clergy associate, Ronnie Pressman, to pray many of the things that we have brainstormed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for a deep breath. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for friendship. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for the ability to hear. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for people to speak with. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for love.
A beautiful one to end on as we turn to page 88 and we join together in these words, Elu Devarim, these are the things that are limitless.
Elu Devarim she'ein lahem shior, shel damochel perotehem ba'olam hazeh, והקרן קיימת לו לעולם הבא, ואלו הן כיבוד אב ואם וגמילות חסדים, והשכמת בית המדרש שחרית וערבית, והכנסת אורחים וביקור חולים, והכנסת כלה וביית המת בעיון תפילה, והבאת שלום בין אדם לחברו, ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם.
Page 94, Baruch She'amar.
Baruch She'amar v'haya olam.
Baruch Hu.
Baruch Oseh v'reshit.
Baruch Omer v'Yoseh.
Baruch Ozer u'mekayem.
Baruch Merachem al haaretz.
Baruch merachem al habriot.
Baruch Mishalem Sachar Tov L'Ereav.
Baruch La'ad v'kayam lanetzach.
Baruch Podeh Umatzil. Baruch Shemo. A special psalm for Shabbat, page 96.
מזמור שיר יום השבת, איתו להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסידך, באמונתך בלילות.
We're on page 97, a special song. Happy are those who dwell in your house. And so we have a joyous melody for this song. Ashrei, Oshrei Beitecha, Oyeh Hallelu Hasela. Ashrei, Oshrei Beitecha, Oyeh Hallelu Hasela. Ashrei, 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 Oshrei Beitecha. forward in our prayer books now. We're on Psalm 150, page 100. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, Bekocho. Hallelujah, Birkia Uzo. Hallelujah, Bikurotav. Hallelujah, Kiro. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, beteka shofar. Hallelujah, benevel vechinor. Hallelujah, betoku makor. Hallelujah, beminim ve'ugam. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, B'tziltzilei Shama. Hallelujah, B'tziltzilei Truah. Kohan Shama, Tehallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. So even though we can't hear you, we want to see your mouths moving online. And for those who are in the room, we can hear you a little bit. So why don't you sing with us?
Rabbi, you need to sing louder.
Louder?
We cannot hear you.
The sound is out. I was trying not to interrupt, but yes, the sound has cut out
Can you hear
significantly.
me now?
No, you're very, very quiet.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit louder, but still not of, yeah, something is wrong with the audio.
All right, Cantor, why don't you take over Psalm 150?
All right, we're going to pick up from in that spot. Actually, where were you capoed? We were almost at the end, Rabbi. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Koran Shama, Tehallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Koran Shama, Tehallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. How about one more time? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, So friends, we are going to rise up on our feet in a moment.
And as we do that, I'm going to test right now. Cantor, can you hear
That's
me?
much better, Rabbi. Yes, in fact, it is. So friends, we are going to move forward in our prayer book, page 106, as if you are able, we rise for the Chatzi Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
ילמד ברכלותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חול וביום החול ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר יומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לעילה מנגו ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן ביולמה ואמרו אמן.
We're on page 108.
Together.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. We're seated together, page 110.
So I don't know how the sun looks in all of the different places where you are and if there's light coming in through your windows, but we move in our tefillah right from our Baruch Hu, our call to fully waking up to worship and to prayerfulness into the acknowledgement of the natural world and all it provides, speaking words of praise for light, for dark, for all of it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or borech choshech oseh shalom boreh et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or borech choshech oseh shalom boreh et hakol. Oseh shalom boreh hakol. Oseh shalom boreh et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer hameorot.
We're on page 112.
Ahava rabba avtanu Adonai Eloheinu chemrat gdola v'tera chamalta aleinu ba'avur avoteinu be'imotenu shibatechu b'cha shibatechu b'cha shibatechu b'cha בת למדנו חוקי חיים כן תכוננו למירנו המרחם ירחם עלינו המרחם רחם עלינו ותן ליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע ללמוד וללמד לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה והארנו בתורתך נדע בגילנו במצוותיך ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך לא נבוש ולא ניכשל ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא פתחנו נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך כי אין פועל ישועות אתה ובנו בחרת וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד.
We move forward. We're on page 116, and I want to call Emma up as she leads us in the Via Hafta. And Kendra, you can hear us okay now?
Perfect.
I think I was just jamming the signal with the sound of the guitar. It was too much for the computer to handle. Come on up whenever you're
Can I
ready.
use this mic?
Yep. Right there.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. וחיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בה בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תהילות, וחיה לכם לציצית, וריתם אותו, וזהרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניהם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתיהם מארץ מצרים, לחיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
And so, by the way, feel free always to type in words of congratulations, Yasher Koach, into the chat. Emma will get this chat when she's done, and then it's going to be her log that you were here. So if you're a family, a friend, or a community member, and you want her to know you were here, make sure to write words of love somewhere into the chat. We're on page 122 as we join together in the words of Micha Mocha.
Sorry, wrong. Or that. Feel free to clap and sing from home, everyone.
Once again, we'll invite you to rise as we join in that bottom prayer, Sorry Israel. And as you do, I want to invite Emma back up to lead us in the Avot and the Gevurot directly after Sorry Israel on the bottom of page 122.
Sorry Israel, kum be'ezrat Israel, ufidechinu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך את אדוני גאל ישראל.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי תהילתך.
Adonai sifatai tiftach Ufiagi tehilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Chanora, El Elyon, Komel Hazadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot v'imachot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באחווה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחייך כל אתה רב לחושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחייך חיים בחסד. מחייך כל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לה? מלך מימי ומחיים, ומצמיע וישועה. ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שתקדישים אותו בשמרו, ככתוב היה נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו ואבינו מלכנו ומשיחנו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש ושיחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue in silence through page 141. And when you're finished, you can be seated. So if you're still praying, I'll invite you to continue praying. And for everyone else, we're going to call up Erica Klempner, Matt Violet, and Lucy Kessler, your Emma aunt, uncle, and cousins to the screen as they read a special prayer for peace.
Okay. Go ahead, Violet.
Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness in our homes.
Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart.
Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, havarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
Amen.
Amen.
So we're on page 140 as we join in a special prayer for peace. Sim Shalom.
שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך, ברכנו יוצרנו כולנו ככה, באור פניך, כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו. שים שלום everyone, שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך, בתורה חיים באהבת חסד, באהבת חסד, וצדקה וברכה ורחמים, וחיים ושלום. שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך, וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך. One more time. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך.
So we're going to move now to Seder Kriyat HaTorah. We're on page 244. And it is my pleasure to call up to open our ark, Emma, your grandmother Ellen, and your brother Ethan, and to pass the Torah L'dor Vador from generation to generation, your grandparents Anne and Martin. We're going to pass it to your parents, Michelle and Scott, and then to you, Emma. So that seems to be the whole in-person squad. We're going to call you guys all up. As together we rise and we call our clergy associate Ronnie Pressman to the screen, page 244.
Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kemasecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Avarachamim eitiv anitzotcha et Zion, tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Ki v'cha levad bataknu, melech eram v'nisa, Adon olamim.
We're on page 246, and we pass our Torah L'dor Vador from generation to generation.
Ki mitzion tetze Torah, ki mitzion tetze Torah, udevar Adonai merushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti, uneramema Shemo Yahdav.
So everyone can be seated if you're at home. And in a moment, Emma is going to deliver a Devar Torah. And in it, she's going to speak about the values of the Jewish people. She's going to take this ancient text and make it relevant for our day. And so as people have done for 3,000 years, she will struggle with Torah and make it so it speaks not to 2000 BCE, but to 2020 of the Common Era. So whenever you're ready.
Shabbat Shalom. My Torah portion is called Parshat Vayishlach. In the portion, Jacob sends a messenger to see Jacob's estranged brother, Esau. Esau goes to meet Jacob after they haven't seen each other for 20 years. To give a little history, Isaac and Rebekah had twin boys named Jacob and Esau. Isaac favors Esau and Rebekah favors Jacob. Isaac thinks he is going to die soon and tells Esau. As a result, Isaac wants to bless his firstborn son, Esau. Rebekah overhears Isaac and Esau's discussion and thinks the wrong twin will get the blessing. Rebekah decides to trick Isaac into thinking he is actually giving the blessing to Esau, but he actually gives it to Jacob. Esau gets mad and Jacob runs away. This is why they haven't seen each other for 20 years. Having not seen his brother for a long time, Jacob is understandably nervous. Upon approaching Esau, Jacob actually positions his least favorite family members in the front and his favorite family members in the back for protection. Esau sees Jacob and runs to meet him, and then Esau kisses Jacob. They start to cry. Jacob introduces Esau to his family. Jacob then offers Esau money and gifts, but Esau initially declines, saying he has enough. After being pressured, Esau accepts the gifts. Esau invites Jacob to his home, and Jacob tells Esau to go ahead and that Jacob will catch up. But Jacob abandons Esau and goes somewhere else. After reading my Torah portion a few times, I kept asking myself, is Esau a bad man? No part of the story indicates or even suggests he's a bad man. However, my understanding is everyone from learned scholars to casual readers believe Esau is a bad man. There are stories about Esau called Midrash. I kept asking myself, is Esau a bad man? These are stories called Midrash, which make him seem evil. For example, they say he worships idols, he's a murderer, and even that when he first sees Jacob, he tries to bite him. But none of this is in the Torah itself. Based on the details provided, I don't think Esau did anything bad. In this story, he might be unintelligent, forgetful, gruff, or wild, but he's not evil. Let's think about this in a different way. What makes someone a bad person? We consider what someone says or does. What does Esau say? What does he do? I'm not sure he says or does anything particularly bad. In the story I went through, even if someone says or does something bad that could be perceived as bad, does that mean it is bad? Esau may not be wholly good, but should we call that evil or bad? In our world, we often describe people as either good or bad, but they're actually not necessarily one or the other. Most people fall between those two extremes. This can be apparent when we watch movies. For example, The Breakfast Club is a great example of people perhaps not being as black and white as they seem, because the characters are portrayed as being a type of person, but it turns out they might actually be multidimensional. In the movie, as you may know, a group of different high school students with their own personalities and styles are serving a day in detention together. They include a nerd and a jock and a princess. Spending that time together, they learn a lot about each other and discover that each person isn't who they really are or even act like. Each person is so much more than their appearance or label. This lesson is true in life as well. One example of people not being black and white for me is teachers. There are some teachers who are disliked. It might be because they are strict or give too much homework. However, if you maybe get to know them, such a teacher, you might see a softer side. The teacher may actually be nice, and if you even don't get to know the teacher, he or she probably has some good qualities. In fact, some really nice teachers aren't actually good teachers because they don't teach you much and they care too much about being liked. But teachers that challenge you can teach you the most. For example, a few years ago, I had a teacher I didn't like so much because she was serious and strict. My dad told me that her style might actually be good for me because maybe she would focus on my learning. He ended up being right. Another example of people perhaps not being black and white is a bully. Most of us have been bullied. Bullies hurt other people, but the reason for bullying may not be clear. Each bully has different circumstances and motivations. Some bully because they have a personal problem and they don't project them on other people. Sometimes it is because they think it's fun. But are bullies bad? We won't know their possibilities or good qualities unless we try to communicate with them, letting them know they hurt us. I just talked about people who seem bad can be good, but people who seem good can also have some bad qualities and do bad things. For example, take Mahatma Gandhi. He famously helped the Indian people achieve interdependence from the British and taught the world about nonviolent activism, but he also wrote letters to Adolf Hitler praising the German leader, actually calling Hitler a genius and brave. Gandhi wrote these letters to try to protect his people and mankind. Gandhi also wrote some questionable comments about the Jewish people after the war. He was an inspirational leader, but he wasn't perfect. Another example from history is Thomas Jefferson, who is one of our country's forefathers, our third president, and the author of the Declaration of Independence. Nonetheless, Jefferson owned hundreds of slaves over the course of his adult life. While he criticized slavery, some have argued he didn't do so as regularly or strongly as he could have. Jefferson is one of the most important American leaders in our country's history who is portrayed on our currency and Mount Rushmore, but he wasn't perfect. Like these examples, especially Esau, I'm not perfect either, and I'm not black and white. Neither are you. Sometimes I make bad choices and bad mistakes. This is okay, because no one in the world is perfect. You are allowed to make some mistakes. Some say it's healthy. It's allowed people to learn. But sometimes I also make good decisions. I know some people think I'm quiet and shy. Sometimes I am, but if you get to know me, I'm definitely not. Just ask my friends or family. I think I'm an example of how the more you see in a person, the more they can surprise you. No one is black and white or bad or good, and that's a good thing.
Shalom. Thank you, Emma. What a powerful teaching.
Yes, and I can't wait to respond to it. My sermon each Shabbat is always in direct reference to what our students speak about. And so you gave us so much to think about and so much to consider. And so we are blessed for having learned from you this morning. And so if you'll direct your attention to the chat, you'll find that there is a link that's posted. There's a little pamphlet that you can download that has the actual portion on it that we're going to be reading. And so I'll give you just a chance to do that now. We have 3 aliyot this morning, all in Hebrew. And so if you want especially to follow along with what the English translation is, make sure to get that chat. And so our first aliyah, of course, Emma's going to be reading, so we'll call her back up here. But our first aliyah is going to be her aunt Stephanie. And so we say, Ta'amod, Shandala Rachel Bat Mordechai Aliyah La Torah.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayisa Yaakov and Avayar v'hine esaba ve'imor arba me'ot ish vayachatz et haladim Aleah ve'al Rachel ve'al shetei hashepachot Vayasem et hashvachot ve'et yadehem rishona ve'et Leah viladecha acharonim ve'et Rachel ve'et Yosef acharonim ve'hu avar livnehem vayiztachu arza sheva pe'amim ad yishto ad ahiv.
And so we call your aunt back to the screen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And so we move now to the second Aliyah, and we want to call, Emma, your parents, Scott and Michelle. Ya'amdu Shmuel ben Shmuel, Michal Nima bat Mordechai la'aliyah la Torah.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayar Tesav Likrato Vayahav Kehu Vayipol Al Tzavarav Vayisokehu Vayiku Vayisa et Enav Vayar et Hanashim ve'et Haladim Vayomer mi'elela Vayomar Haladim Asher Hanan Elohim et avdecha vatigashna hashvachot hanan v'yadehem vatishtahavena vatigash gam Leah v'yadecha vayistahavu v'achar nigash Yosef v'rahel vayistahavu vayomer Milecha Hochamachanecha Zeh Asher Pagashi Vayomar Limsohen Be'ene Adonim.
Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Well, hold on, I gotta call you up.
Oh,
Yeah, this is your big moment. So we formally call you up to the bima. Ta'amod, ta'amod, ta'amod. Chava bat Shmuel v'Michal la'aliyah laTorah. Chizki v'imsei. And before you go, Cantor, we're still good on sound? Perfect. All right.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Vayomer Esav yesh li ram achi ihi lecha asher la. Vayomer Yaakov alna Ina matzati hen be'enecha v'yekachta minhati miyagi ki al ken ra'iti fanecha kirot penei Elohim v'tzirtzeni kachna et birchati asher huvatla Ichanani Elohim v'hi yeshlicho v'yibsar bo v'ayaka. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notena Torah.
Amen. And so the cantor is going to lead us in a second in the Shechianu. Stay up here for just a moment. And afterwards, we are going to shower you with candy and with sweets. And so we say first the Shechianu.
We chant together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu mekimanu vehigianu lazman hazeh. Siman tov, mazel tov, siman tov, mazel tov, siman tov, siman tov, mazel tov, siman tov, yeilanu, 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 ulechol Yisrael, yeilanu, yeilanu, ulechol Yisrael, yeilanu, yeilanu, ulechol Yisrael, yeilanu, yeilanu, ulechol Yisrael. Mazal tov, Emma. Wow.
All right. And so as I close up the computer, Emma, you can come back up with your parents because they're going to deliver some special words to you in just a moment. And so again, if you want to put anything in the chat for Emma to see, make sure to do that. That way she can read it after services are done. We'll make sure that she gets it mailed to her and it's words of love for you.
My dearest Emma, I'm so proud of you today. You consistently amaze me with your strength, determination, and courage. Over the last 9 months, like many, you've experienced your fair share of disappointments. Activities you spent the better part of the school year preparing for, including the school play and your hip hop dance recital, were both canceled, as was sleepaway camp. But you pursued new hobbies and made the best of challenging circumstances. You played tennis, learned to really ride your bike, and recorded endless TikTok dances. You even started your own influencer project where you researched and contacted companies. You truly show passion and commitment to whatever you are doing. This is also exemplified by your work in Hebrew school and middle school. You prepare for class, complete your homework, and study for quizzes and tests without any help or reminders. You strive to succeed and you have excelled. Preparing for your bat mitzvah was no exception. I often heard you spontaneously chanting throughout the house or practicing in your bed late at night when you should have been asleep. But most importantly, I am proud to call you my daughter. Your heart shows no bounds. You are sensitive and sweet and want to share your joy with everyone. Our home is filled with your laughter and endless dancing. You make every day better. My blessing for you is that you continue to show strength in everything you do, that you understand when you work hard, great things happen. Don't let others hold you back. Don't let fear hold you back. Don't let anyone make you feel less than all that you are and will become. You are amazing, and you can and will achieve amazing things.
Emma, I'm so proud right now. Proud of you. This is a moment I've looked forward to for a long time. Up until pretty recently, I didn't picture us along in this synagogue,
broadcasting this service over Zoom. But here we are. And you have worked through these challenging circumstances with focus and dedication, as well as flexibility and grace. Some people may not know what you have done to get to this moment. Years of Hebrew school, learning the Hebrew language and about Jewish culture, months and months of learning your Haftara portion through instruction and practice, and months of thinking through and writing a speech about your Haftara portion. Your related commitment and sacrifice over the last few years have been amazing, especially since the pandemic took hold and changed quite a bit for your preparation to our plans. I know you've at times felt disappointment about this service, your service, not being witnessed by a synagogue filled with friends and family, or transitioning hours later to an epic celebration. But your ability to see this through is a true testament to your tremendous fortitude. And we'll have that party you want, hopefully next year. My blessing for you, Emma, is that you always remember the strength you summoned in 2020, and that it inspires you to stretch for the stars to realize your dreams. Emma, I've learned a lot of things this year. One of them is that you may be seen as demure at times, but you are a force of nature who can't be stopped by disappointment or a global pandemic. And I can't wait to see what you do next and over the years to come. I love you.
And we're going to turn now to page 253 as we join together in a prayer for healing. And I'll invite you, if you've got names of people that you're thinking of who are in need of healing, to type their names into the chat. Bishebera avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. We think of the following individuals: Mishebera imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And so we call to the screen for a special prayer for the state of Israel. Emma, your family friends, Ellen and Rick Barlas.
O Heavenly One, protector and redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Amen. And so I'll invite us to rise as we dress our Torah and we return it to the ark. We're seated together. So Emma, we want to call you back up to the bima, because if you'll scroll up in your chat, but maybe we'll put it in again, you can find the, there we go, the link to the Haftara, which you're about to be chanting. In our tradition, it's customary not just to read from the 5 books of Moses, but a companion piece from a different part of the Bible. And so you're going to be reading your Haftara now. That speaks to many of the similar themes that you can find in your portion. And so we'll begin first with the blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Haboher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'nivei ha'emet v'tzedek ve'ami tziluim yimshuvati ve'el yikra'u yachad lo yiromem Etenecha Ephraim, Amagenocha Yisrael, Etenecha Kiradma, Ashimucha Kitzoyim, Nepa Alai Libi, Yachad Nichmeru Nichumai. Lo etesel haron api, lo ashuv l'shahet Ephraim, ki el anochi v'lo ish b'shir b'cha kadosh v'lo ani biyar. Acharei Adonai Yehu ki aryeh Yis'ag Kihu Yis'ag Yeshirdo Banim Miyam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzor kol ha'olami tzedik b'chol hadarot ha'el hane'eman ha'omer ve'oseh hamdaber u'mekayem shechol devarav emet v'tzedek al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al hanevi'im Yom HaShabbat Hazeh Shenatata Lanu Adonai Eloheinu Likdusha v'Linucha Lechavot Ultifaret Al Hakol Adonai Eloheinu Nachnu Modim Lach Umvarchem Ota Yitbarashim Befikochai Tamid Le'olam Va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
Yeshar koach. Emma, you can take a deep breath now. You did it. And you did it extraordinarily. Your chanting just now and your chanting of the Torah showed real proficiency and practice. And the words that you shared with us were just incredibly important and profound. I saw somebody in the chat, you'll be able to see later, who wrote something like, I can't believe that we got to hear pop culture references and history references all in the course of one Devar Torah. There was a lot of diversity in the way that you expressed, I think, a fundamental idea, which is the idea that people are not black and white, right? That people who we consider evil have some good in them, and people that we consider really good probably have done some bad stuff too. And you talk about that in light of Jewish tradition's desire to make Jacob into a saint and Esau into the devil. And that's not the way things work, right? You really, I think, kind of pulled Esau out of the dredges of history. And you said, look, this guy might have some flaws. He might be ignorant. He might be a buffoon. He might be an oaf, but he is not bad. And so to call him that is to undermine the essential goodness that exists both in him and in all of us. So I've been thinking a lot about ethics, and I want to talk about this for a second because I think it's really important. We live in a society where it's really easy to label someone as black and white, right? If you're a Democrat, you probably label people who support Donald Trump as bad, right? And if you're a Republican, you probably label people who are on the left as communist or socialist or not getting it, right? And those few people who can somehow see the good in both sides are actually becoming fewer and further between. It is very difficult in this day and age to look at someone who disagrees with you and to say, you know what, they're essentially good, but we are just disagreeing on the facts. Because the truth is, we've lost this fundamental piece of Judaism that has pervaded our people, which is the idea that there can be two people, each with valid opinions that completely disagree with each other, both of which are having a dispute for the sake of heaven, right? That are trying to get at the truth. And you might be getting at it in slightly different ways. One of my favorite thinkers nowadays is a guy named Jonathan Haidt. I think it's Haight, I think is how you pronounce his name. And one of the things that he says is that every single culture has in itself the same kind of values, right? If you kind of look cross-culturally, every culture somehow talks about fairness. Every culture somehow defends people against harm. Every culture has some kind of feeling of a camaraderie with the in-group, and there is some group that's on the outside, right? Every single culture has a sense of some kind of commitment to purity, whatever that purity looks like. And some of us, by the way, have different weightings to those particular things. And he goes and he looks at Democrats and he looks at Republicans, and he basically says, look, Democrats and Republicans all share those 5 things in common. I only talked about 4 of them, but share 5 things in common. But the question of how you weight them is often the question of values. And so, for example, you might find that somebody's in-out group is up against somebody's sense of fairness. And you have to make the decision one way or the other. Because true ethics, being a good person, is usually not choosing between a right and a wrong. It's actually usually choosing between 2 rights that you're deciding which one to weigh above the other. So Emma, I want to give you a couple thought experiments, right? If hypothetically, your friend comes to you and your friend says, so today, how do I look, right? And the truth is, your friend looks pretty horrible. They're disheveled, they've got rips in their clothes, they've got stains, but they're kind of proud of the way that they're looking, right? The question is, do you lie to them and tell them they look good or not, right? Well, what are you doing there? You're actually weighing 2 values against one another. One value is honesty or truth, and the other value, somebody in the room want to say it, is what? Kindness, right? And truth and kindness often bump up against one another when you're trying to make ethical decisions. And you have to decide, am I going to do the kind thing or the true thing? And you can make arguments, by the way, about both. And honestly, nobody in our room and nobody on the computer would disagree that truth is not important and that kindness is not important. What they disagree about, just like Jonathan Haidt talks about Republicans and Democrats, is the way that you weight those values. And therefore, if you were to say, you don't look good today, and somebody weighs kindness above truth, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, you're being callous, like you're being mean, right? Or if you were to say, you look beautiful today, and somebody weighs kindness, a truth above kindness, they're going to say to you, why do you lie to her? Why are you leading her on? If you're going to be a good friend, you should be honest with her and tell her so she can go and get changed, right? At the end of the day, it is so difficult, and this is why ethics is so hard, to decide how to weigh those two rights. And the goal in assessing someone and trying to decide, is this person good or is this person bad? Is this person doing evil or not? Is actually to get down to the brass tacks and to try to figure out, well, what exactly is going on here? And do I or do I not disagree with their weighting? And at least do I respect the thinking behind which one of these values I am going to weigh more? So let's take your portion. You've got Jacob and you've got Esau. And Esau says to Jacob, as you said, after they reunite after 20 years of not seeing one another, and they hug and they kiss, and Esau says, come live with me, come be with me. I want you to be my brother again. And Jacob basically says, why don't you go on ahead, I'll catch up. And then he doesn't. So Jacob has just lied to his brother Esau. So the question is, did Jacob do the wrong thing or not? Is Jacob a bad person or not? And so the way to look at this is to ask, well, what might have been Jacob's motivations, right? Here, this is another question about kindness versus honesty. If Jacob had just said, you know what, I'm so glad to run into you again, but the truth is I actually don't really want a relationship with you. We've had bad blood for a while. I kind of don't trust that we're not going to have bad blood again. He would have been super honest, but he also would have been pretty callous and a big jerk, right? On the other hand, by lying to him, he comes off as sneaky, almost like he didn't learn anything from all the other sneakiness things that he's done over the course of his life. But at the end of the day, you can't fault him for choosing one versus the other, because there are times where honesty wins and there are times where kindness wins. And the truth is, we may not agree, but we have to acknowledge that both of those values matter in decision-making. Nuance matters. And we are not good today at giving people the benefit of the doubt that they went through the really hard process of weighing those values and deciding which one wins. So Emma, I want you to come on up, come stand here. Because, you can stay right there, I feel like from working with you and having you think through these things, that you have the ability to have that nuanced view, right? You can, for example, immediately think about being black and white and think about The Breakfast Club and how that movie, the theme of that movie was such. And I was actually thinking about the fact that the first time I ever saw The Breakfast Club was at my Jewish summer camp. And you know what they did at the Jewish summer camp? They did the opposite of the message of The Breakfast Club, right? The end of The Breakfast Club says, well, we're all the jock and we're all the princess and we're all the basket case, right? Isn't that the monologue at the end? My camp, we watched The Breakfast Club, and then you had to like choose which of the 5 different people you were, which is the opposite of the meaning behind it. And it's difficult at the age that you were when you first saw it, maybe 12, 11, I don't know, to be able to pick out, the major theme in that movie. Because I think your antenna is up about the question of right and wrong. I think your antenna is up about what's wrong in the world and how to make it better. I think your antenna is up about the fact that people are complicated. They're not easy. And you, I see as an observer of the world, right? I've seen you be animated. I've seen you be animated with your family and your friends, but I also have seen you hang back a little and look around and see. And the truth is, the only way that you're going to be able to process the world is by taking some time to hang back and to look. And I do think that as you look around the world and you observe the world and you learn from the world, which is something that I think that you're pretty good at, you're going to find that that is going to be the way that you're going to have the courage, the integrity, and most importantly, the knowledge to be able to decide those really thorny questions of right and wrong. Something you're going to spend your whole life working at, making mistakes, and getting better at. But a head start that I think that you have among your general group of teenagers right now. And so with that, we want to offer you this blessing. So I want to call Ronnie Pressman and Cantor Meredith Greenberg up to the screen. But before we do that, before they bless you, I'm going to go right now and I'm going to make it a gallery view so you can see everybody first. And for all those assembled, I want you to put your hands up as if you are blessing her too. Cool, right? We join together. May God bless you and may God protect you. May God cause God's light to shine upon you and give you grace. May God continue to shine on you, lifting God's face to you and granting you a life of shalom or peace. So you can be seated. Actually, wait, I forgot one thing. Everybody else can put their hands down now. Because we got some gifts for you. So here are 3 gifts. The first is a Kiddush cup. The second being a Tanakh or a Hebrew Bible, where you can read it and wrestle with different people who are not black and white and wrestling with their own integrity and ethics. And finally, a tzedakah box, so you can do good in the world. And then I have here a certificate of Bat Mitzvah, including a $250 certificate should you decide to go to Israel with our youth program, Nifty in Israel. So thank you. Now you can be seated. And so we're going to move now into the concluding section of our service. And so we're going to turn to page 282 as together we rise for Elena.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latei gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu ki goyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo samchelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam. V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
We move forward 5 pages in our prayer book.
V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz Bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo, echad.
We pause for a moment as we think of those who we have loved and who we have lost. As we turn to page 294, I'll invite you to either say aloud or to place into the chat names of people for whom you're thinking. Sandy Kessler. We join together in the Mourner's Kaddish, page 294. Yitgadav v'yitgadash shemei rabbah. V'yamad divrach l'rutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayid l'chol beit Yisrael. Bagala u'vizman kariv v'imru amin. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata damiran v'yama v'imru amin. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amin. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amin. Please be seated. And so we're to conclude our service, page 294 again on the bottom with Oseh Shalom, though I'll invite everyone to stick around as we join together for Motzi and Kiddush. And then afterwards, we'll allow you to unmute yourself and to, wish congratulations orally to Emma, though feel free to write it into the chat at any time, page 294.
Shabbat Shalom, Emma, and the whole family. Mazel Tov.
Yeah, so Emma, if you want to come back up here, we're going to lead Kiddush and Motzi for everyone. So we'll join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. And if you want to hold our challah nice and high, we'll say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stop live streaming, though I will record